Hey dearies, and welcome back once again to the channel. Today we're going to be making a double-breasted jacket, and that's what mine came out to look like. If you're meeting me and you're watching my video for the first time, kindly hit the subscribe button and put on your post notification bell so that you get notified whenever I put up a new video. Take a look at that beauty. Okay guys, if you're ready, let's delve right into this video ASAP. Okay guys, we'll be needing our buttons and our lining. I'm going to be using a black fabric, a black lining, and also a black satin fabric. What I have there is about 2.5 yards of satin. So I'm going to quickly set that aside and fold my lining in a quarter of my hip circumference. Okay, I'm going to be making use of my hip circumference even though this blouse is not up to my hip line rather. So the full length I'm taking is about 23 inches. Okay, and then my bust point is about 10.5, and also my half length is 17 inches. So I'm just going to rule those lines out for you to see. Okay guys, next up we're going to be going over to the shoulder line to mark our shoulder measurement. Our shoulder measurement for this tutorial is about 14 inches, which is divided by 2 is 7. So what you just saw me do was to mark my 7 inches, and then on my bust point or my bust line I marked my bust measurement divided by 4. All right, on my waist also I marked my waist measurement divided by 4, that's 8.5. And then for my hip 46 I divided by 4. Okay, and then I marked my outcome, which is about 11.5 inches. So I'm just going ahead to add 1.5 inches side seam allowance, and I'll join those points together. Now if you look closely at the waistline, you find that it's looking too deep, and I don't really like my blouses looking that way. So I'm going to come out a little like you're seeing me do right there. Okay, and I did with 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to make a dart. Now you can totally ignore this if you do not really want a dart, if your outfit came out just straight, okay, like your waist wasn't too small and then the hip that way. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark my nipple to nipple measurement, which is about 7 inches divided by 2 is 3.5. So I'm marking 3.5 plus 3/4. Now where I got the 3/4 is 1.5, which I added, divided by 2, just so you have 3/4 on each side. Okay, now I'm trying to make my mark my bust line, my nipple to nipple line on my hip line and then on my bust line. Okay, and then from the hip line I'm coming up by about 1.5 inches, and because this is the back, sorry I forgot to mention that this is the back block. Okay, on the back block the dart legs get to the bust line. Okay, so you see me draw that up, and then I'll just mark or join the points up to make my dart. I believe you can see that clearly. I don't know how to explain that, but just look at what I'm doing. So I'm marking up, I'm bringing out the new side seam. Okay, and then we're going to discard the old one. Now we're moving on to the neckline. Okay, I'm trying to mark out my neck width. Okay, and then for this I'm making use of 3.5. Now 3.5 inches was gotten from my nipple to nipple measurement. That's about where you take your shoulder slope. Okay, I hope you got that. So right there on the 7 inches, which is our shoulder line, I'm just simply going to come down, okay, to make my arm hole. Now in case you forget to take that measurement on your client, you can as well just divide your shoulder measurement divided by 2. Like for me is 14, so I just need to divide by 2, which is 7. So on that slope I'm just going to mark 7 inches and then go back to the center front of the fabric and then mark 7 inches again, just to make a block like a straight line. Okay, so I'm ruling that out, and that becomes our chest line, which is also known as our armhole. Okay, the armhole compartment. So I'm just taking the looking for the middle part, and then coming by 3/4 inches just to make that slope and to take away the bulkiness from the armhole area. So I'll just introduce my curve roll to make this curve. Next up, we want to move over to the neckline to mark the neck width and the neck depth of the back block. So I'll be using 4 inches for this, and then for the width, and then for the depth I'm making use of 1.5 inches. So what you see me do is curve that out, and then one last thing we need to do is to cut. But before we cut, I want us to also look closely at what I'm trying to do. I had to leave out 1/2 inch allowance for the shoulder joining. Okay, the shoulder joining, because I didn't add that while I was doing it. So while cutting, please do well to add 1/2 inch for your shoulder joining so you don't reduce your measurement. Every other thing is in place. So we're going to just cut this out quickly, and then this is what we have. Okay, now look at the hem of this blouse. You find out that it's very sharp. It has a sharp end right there. If you eventually sew this up, you won't like what it comes out to look like. So I just came up by 1 inch, and I'm going to make a little curve. Okay, a curve that just I was about maybe 4 inches long about. So I just trimmed it off, and then I just blended it up, and just like you're seeing me do that. So I'm going to put this away and introduce the front block. Now for the front block, the first thing we need to do is to add the excesses, which is going to form the double-breasted jacket, to make it double-breasted. Okay, I don't know what I was thinking when I was cutting or when I was marking this, but believe me guys, I'm so sorry, and I couldn't remake this video. But we don't need as much as 6 inches, which I used here. I think we just need about 3 inches, because I had to cut it all out again and then to reduce that measurement right there. So guys, pardon me, but when you're making yours, please just make use of 3 inches for this excess which you're seeing right there. So what you're seeing me do there is mark my waist measurements, my bust measurements, and then my shoulder line. Sorry, my shoulder line, bust line, and then waistline. That's what you're seeing me do. Every other measurement will be taken from this straight line you're seeing me doing here, just like I'm doing right now. So what I'm doing is replicating everything I did on the back block. Okay, I just marked my shoulder measurement, and then my shoulder measurement, which is 17 inches. I also marked 3.5 inches to make my slope. All right, I hope you can see what I just did. And then I went ahead to mark my neck depth of 4 inches. Okay, now looking at the depth of how much cleavage you want to open. All right, that's why I was actually making that gesture, but we'll get back to that. So on my bust measurement is 40 divided by 4, which is 10 inches, plus my 1.5 inches allowance. Exactly same measurement which I took, or every procedure which I took on the back block. Okay, I'm replicating the same. I also had to do the same with the darts also. Now please take note, if you don't desire this darts, you can as well take it off. Like, you don't need it, you just ignore it and move on. Just what you need to do is mark your bust measurement, and then straight up to your hip measurements. That would do it. Okay, but I wanted this to be fitted kind of. The picture which we're following, that's the inspiration, it doesn't really have it's not really fitted rather. So moving on to the bust, the dart. Okay, now you can see clearly that our bust dart our waist dart for the front block doesn't get to the bust line. I had to come down by 1 inch, which you're seeing me do, and I'm already marking out my darts. It's that easy, exactly what you saw me do on the back block. So I'm coming down to the cleavage, the neck depth. Okay, like I was saying, it depends on how much cleavage you want to show. So I do not want to show much cleavage. All right, so I came up about 2 inches. You can as well make that higher or make that lower as you so wish. All right, so if you're seeing what I'm doing with my hand, like my gesture, you just get to find that that's exactly where I placed or the way I drew out my neckline. So I'm looking for the best way for my neckline to turn out. All right, I already got one, and then just simply make a curve right there. My fabric right now is on fold. Okay, so I'm cutting 2 pieces at the same time. Guys, I'm so sorry, like I said earlier, you don't have to make the same mistake which I did. Okay, you can reduce these excesses which I have in front to about 3 inches, and that will do it for you. Right now I'm trying to make my armhole casement, all right, to make my chest line and the rest of it just exactly as I did in the back block. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and roll out my armhole curve, and voila, that is it. For the front piece, I also made use of 3.5 inches to take out the bulkiness from the armhole area. So I'm going to also curve out the hemline just like I did for the back piece. It's exactly how what I did like for the back block, just same. The only difference is the excess which is in front. Okay, so I'm quickly going to cut out, and remember to also add your 1/2 inch allowance, sewing allowance, to the neckline just like you see me do, and then every other thing is in place. Good. So we're going to slit that open just like you saw me do, and then that's basically all that we need to do. So I was actually cutting on my lining. Okay, this is actually my lining fabric, so I'm just going to quickly go ahead, replicate this on my main fabric. I've gone ahead to replicate same cutting on my main fabric. Now you can see that. Okay, I've gone ahead to replicate that. So at this point we're going to need our tracing wheel. We're going to introduce our tracing wheel just so we replicate that on our main fabric. Remember, we didn't chalk on the main fabric, so I'm just placing my lining directly above or on top my main fabric. Now it's the lining that it's on top and my main fabric is under. So what I need to do is hold my fabric in place and then simply use my tracing wheel to rule out my dart. Now I know you can't see this clearly, but I can. If you do that, you see it clearly. So what I just need to do is do exactly what I'm doing, like chalk my dart, and then voila, I can now see how to hold my dart when I want to sew it on my main fabric. So this is actually the back block. Okay, it's as easy as that. I'm going to do the same on the other side of the lining just like you're seeing me do, and then I'm going to put this aside and then do the same for the front piece. I'm still placing my lining. Make sure to place it properly so that it aligns very well. Pick up your get your tracing wheel again. Be sure to arrange properly, please. It matters a lot, so you don't have one dart up at the second one on the other side. So just do the same, repeat the same procedure. Mark out your darts so that you see the replicates on the main fabric, and what you just need to do is chalk that down so that you can see clearly when you're holding your darts on the machine. So that's what I just did for the front piece. So I'm going to go ahead to chalk on the back side of my main fabric. So guys, if you've watched it this time, please hit the subscribe button. If you find this video helpful, please hit the subscribe button, and also do well to put on your post notification bell. Who knows, you might just be missing out on what you've been looking out for. So do that right now and get back to the video. So I'm still trying to mark out my darts, and I think that's the last one. Sorry about my dog, guys. So we're going to be going over to the sleeve. Okay, now if you look closely, I'm so sorry I didn't check my camera properly, but I had to fold this for the sleeve on bias form. It's just like a triangular form. Okay, That was what I did, just to get the fullness which I wanted. I didn't want a straight sleeve, so I just marked a straight line. Okay, that's to mark like the beginning of the sleeve, the cap of the sleeve, and then I went down. I came down by about 4 inches. Okay, I just did this randomly because of I was making use of the fabric that I had. I think that was just it. I'm so sorry I didn't check the camera, but the length of the sleeve I used was about 21 inches, plus that included in the 25. It was supposed to be 20 inches, and then 1 inch added was supposed to be for my elastic casing. That made it 21 inches. So I'm just using my free hand to make a curve. All right, it's just free hand, like I'm just making use of the exact fabric, just like I said. I already achieved what I wanted with the bodice. Okay, so this is just exactly what then I had to go around there to make a curve, a more pronounced curve. That was what I was doing there, nothing more. So when I cut it all, or when I cut it out, I'm very sure you see what I did right there. So I'm just going ahead to place on another folded fabric to get a second sleeve. So I've taken to the machine right now, and I'm about holding or sewing up my darts on both lining and main fabric. Okay, and I remember I have to do this on the back side, as in the old side of the fabric, both for the lining and the main fabric. So I'm just going to go ahead and then hold those parts up. I'm done sewing my darts up. Now I'm going to take one part of my front bodice and place it on my back bodice to hold the shoulder. Okay, I'm going to do that with 1/2 inch. Remember, you're sewing front sides to front sides. Okay, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to be making an inseam finishing in this jacket, so we don't have our seam obvious inside the jacket. So I'm sewing up the other shoulder, all right, with 1/2 inch. And remember, I used 1.5 inches for my side seam allowance, so I'm just going ahead to sew up 1.5 inch of my side seam allowance on both sides. Okay, I did that for the main fabric and also for my lining. Please take note that every step and procedure that was taken on the lining is also has to be taken on the main fabric. All right, we're done, and then this is us on the table trying to place this out so that we get to find out what we've done so far. So look at this, it's already looking so beautiful already, but I'm going to alter my neckline. I think I don't like the way it's looking. Okay, I'm going to come back to that. So these are lining, these are lining piece. All right, like I said, we're going to be making an inseam finishing on this jacket. This is looking beautiful already, this is looking nice. Now the first thing we want to do also is to fold into two to cut or to reduce the measurement of the lining. We're going to be reducing the measurement of the lining by 1.5 inches. This is because we don't want our lining popping out when we're done. Okay, we want this to flow, as in go under. Okay, I don't know how to I don't know the best words to explain this. All right, but you can look at your suits or jackets and you see that the folding inside is about 1 inch or thereabout. So we're taking about 1.5 inches off or less the lining so that our main fabric can fold over. All right, I hope we understand what I'm saying. But if you follow me, just keep following me, you would get to understand what I'm trying to say. Okay, that's me cutting out the 1.5 inches. Okay, that's what it looks like after cutting that out. So the next thing you want to do, you want to place it neatly on the table. Remember I said earlier that this extension was way too much, so I had to reduce it. So when you're making yours, please just make the extension about 4 inches, all right, so that you can make it 3.5 inches, and then you have 1/2 inch to sew them together. So I'm just going to cut for main fabric and lining. That's me placing the one I cut out of the lining on the main fabric just so I get same measurement off. I said something about the neckline earlier. I wanted to change what it was looking like. So I remember our female shirts or jackets has our right side flipping onto the left side. Okay, so this is it placed before me. This flap which I'm holding right now is what is going to be on top. So I want to just change my neckline just to make it look a little bit different. I do not like to copy verbatim. Yeah. So that's me just coming down my 3.5 inches, and then I'm going to cut it off just on one side. The inner one is just going to remain same way. If you feel this is not necessary, please ignore. Okay, there's no harm in doing that. Okay, I think this is a little bit more classy, so I'm just going to place this same way. That's the way I'm doing it right now, is back sides facing back sides so that I can get my flip. Okay, now I'm gonna say that again. I actually placed my main fabric down there, and I placed my lining inside of it with my back side facing back, the back side of the fabric, back side of the lining together, and that's it. So on this same flip, I'm just going to cut or do exactly what I did on the main fabric. So at this point right now, the first thing we want to do is to pin our neckline, and you have to ensure that this matches. Now the way you're going to do that is to find the neck, or what's it called, the shoulder joining. Okay, those are the points you're going to pin together. They must align. So you introduce your pins, and we're going to pin that up. Okay, we'll pin the shoulders up just like you're seeing me do right there, and then we're going to sew with 1/2 inch. So when you're done sewing up with 1/2 inch, make tiny notches around the neckline just so that when you're top stitching, it lays down flat neatly. Yes, it helps it to lay down flat neatly when you iron that also. So try as much as you can to do that neatly, and remember you're top stitching to your lining piece. I'll repeat, your lining piece, so make that as neatly as you can. Okay, that's it. And then at this point, I'm going to take it to the hem right now. When you want to sew your hem, what you want to do first is to get the side seam allowance aligning to each other. Now the side seam allowance of the main fabric and the lining is what I'm talking about. Now at this point, you're joining the front sides of the lining to the front side of the fabric, of the main fabric. Okay, now pin at the side seam allowance. That's what you saw me doing not quite long. So I'm just going to go to one end and then sew up with 1/2 inch all the way to the other end. So that's it right there. I'm done with the hem of the sleeve. I'm done with the hem of the jacket, and what's left is just the two openings on both sides. All right, that's in front, the flip of the jacket, the ones in front. So that's what's just left. So I'm just going to sew that up with about 1/2 inch on the left and on the right. Okay, I'm just going to do that, and then we're going to put this aside to sew the sleeve. Now this is my sleeve right here. What you see me do is making a casing with the 1 inch which I added to my length for the elastic casing. So I'm just going to quickly make a casing, folding this twice. Okay, using about 3/4 inch and then 1/4 inch in. All right, to make my seam neatly. So here's our jacket, guys. I haven't even given it a good press, and it's looking this beautiful already. So get your pressing button handy, and then your false buttons also. We're going to attach that to this. Can you see the neckline? It's looking very beautiful also. So if yours is coming out this way, guys, you're on the right track. All right, So this is a closer look of what my jacket came out to look like. So at this point, I'm just going to attach my sleeves, all right, to it, and voila, that is it. So I'm gonna be sewing onto this jacket my pressing buttons. Okay. So that's it, guys, for this tutorial. If this tutorial was helpful, kindly give this video a thumbs up, and also if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button and turn on your post notification bell, and also share this video. This is what mine came out to look like. I hope you were blessed by this video. Keep watching, and until I see you in my next video, bye.